Hello and welcome to day 2 here at SMTAi. Busy show yesterday and we're looking forward to the same again today. Got a number of guests coming on the show today, and my first guest this morning is somebody I've known for many years through the technology in the industry, but he's actually moved sideways a little bit and is also working in our side with the media on some podcasts. Of course, it's Mike Konrad. Nice to meet you, Mike.
Hey, good to see you, Trevor.
Okay.
Thanks for inviting me.
Yeah, so I mean, obviously we've talked many times over the years over Aqueous technologies and the defluxers that you manufacture and that sort of thing. What made you decide to go into the podcasting business?
I lost a bet. No. At Aqueous, several years ago, we made kind of a strategic switch from the way we show ourselves to the world. And we used to do, back in the day, you remember those days, there was 9 or 10 trade shows a year, and that was our primary way of getting our message out. And then we just had kind of an epiphany that, at least in our case, the message just got noisier and noisier and noisier, and we had to do more gimmicky things year after year after year. Giant waterfalls and video games and surfboards in the booth. And one year we had this beautiful waterfall in the booth, and someone came up and asked if they could take a picture of it.
Right.
And I'm like, of course, yeah, sure. And then they asked if we could move our equipment out of the way so they could get a better picture of the waterfall. And it just hit me like a lightning bolt. Like, what are we doing? Right. We're not, we're not sending a message of improving reliability through contamination removal. We're sending a message of
we have a pretty booth.
We have a pretty booth, and we're going to give away swag and raffles, and the message just kind of got diluted. So we decided to make a switch and really concentrate on education, because in our industry specifically, in the cleaning industry, cleaning for the most part went away 20, 30 years ago after the no clean revolution hit, and there was a ban on the solvents that were used to clean, and for a lot of people, cleaning went away, and now cleaning's roaring back due to all sorts of technical reasons. And there's this big gap of knowledge. There's young engineers that have never seen cleaning, and they question, why do I clean when the jar says no clean? And then there's older, more experienced engineers that say, oh, cleaning, yeah, we're going to go out and buy trichloroethane and throw everything in a vapor degreaser, which you can't do anymore. So there's this big knowledge gap. And with a record number of senior experienced engineers retiring out, and this, as it was coined by a friend of mine, the silver tsunami effect of the old sages leaving and young people coming in with education but no experience, there's a lot of knowledge loss. So we decided that it was time to just switch our effort into education.
Yeah, that's a really interesting point. I mean, it used to be back in the day that these older sages from the industry, when they come up to retirement, they might write a book, which would be published, that would somehow capture a lot of the wealth of knowledge they've learned over their career. But of course, nobody does books these days, really. And so therefore you're having to look at more modern mediums like podcasting and videos.
What I liked about podcasting is when, I have a face for radio, and the fact that we're just recording the audio takes away a lot of the distraction of the message and of the person speaking or what's in the background and all that. And what I love about the whole podcast medium is that you can listen to it, and when you stop listening to it, it remembers where you were, and when you come back to it again, it just automatically resumes. It's a filler material, so people listen to it in a car, on an airplane, on a treadmill, whatever. So it's a really convenient way to digest information and to broadcast information, and it lives forever. We have right now 24 episodes out since January. We do it every 2 weeks, and you don't have to listen to them. It's not a story. You don't have to listen to them in order. So if you're interested in X-ray, if that's your thing, we have an episode on X-ray. If you're into DFM, we have a whole episode or two on DFM. I mean, it's just, I'm really privileged to be able to interview these subject matter experts that I find fascinating, and I get to ask questions, not because they're just, you know, contrived questions, but I truly ask questions because I want to know the answers, and I don't know the answers. So, and my guests do. So it's a way to educate the industry. It's a way to provide that legacy that you're talking about. It's the kind of the modern book.
Absolutely.
So that younger people coming in or new people coming into the industry have some tools. They have your site with lots of interviews with the people who are, you know, retiring out. So hopefully some of that is legacy, and then podcasts provide an additional form of legacy.
Yeah, I mean, well, obviously we do the same sort of function through the video interviews we do, but we also try to look at new products and stuff like that and see what's coming. You know, video allows you to look at equipment. And
video is great for your industry. Absolutely. I mean, you can't get by without it.
So, going back to the podcast, I mean, which ones have been your highlights? Which ones of the ones you've done do you think really hit the mark and had a lot of really good, juicy information in them?
Well, I have two answers for that, and sometimes in one case it's the same answer. The ones I enjoy doing and the ones my audience downloads more than any other, and they happen to be the number one episode that we have was with two guests, Eric Camden and Paco Solis from Foresight. Foresight is a failure analytical laboratory that concentrates on contamination-related failure. And these guys are, they call them investigators. So they almost like CSI. They're like detectives, you know, finding out who murdered who, and they tell stories from the field, and they show up when things go bad, right? So they show up when there's been a fire or, you know, some catastrophe, and everyone's pointing their finger, and these guys show up and solve the crime, so to speak. So I think maybe it's just humanity's interest in things that go wrong. When we hear about things that are going bad with one company, we feel better about ourselves, right?
It's very true.
So that was a very popular episode because they got to tell some pretty funny stories. You know, withholding all the names of the players, so we don't indict anybody. But that was a good one. One of my favorite ones was an interview with Wendy Casker, who is a Johns Hopkins Applied Physics Laboratory engineer. She was doing work for NASA. They were building boards for NASA, and NASA required that all the boards be cleaned with solvent. And she came to the IPC SMTAi Cleaning and Coating Conference many years ago, which is in this city, in Chicago, every 2 years. And she listened to me and many other speakers talk about the advantages of a water-based process and et cetera for cleaning. And she went back to her boss and she says, well, how come we can't use water? And the boss said, well, NASA doesn't allow us to use water. So she said, why not? And she asked the questions, and she ended up doing this whole DOE and presented all this evidence to NASA, and NASA went, wow, okay, you can do it. And then 2 years later, she was speaking at the conference. And so she went from student
So she went there to
teacher.
learn about it, and then ended up doing her own investigation into this and creating a whole thesis on why this should be used.
And implemented what she learned at the conference, which is why these things are great, right? So that was one of my personal favorites. And then I had an interview with Phil Zarro and Jim Hall.
They're always entertaining.
They are. Their show is very much like the old NPR radio show, Car Talk. You know, where two crotchety guys from, you know, South Boston talk about cars, and their style is very similar, and they're very entertaining. You laugh and you learn all at the same time. So they're wonderful guests. I'll have them on again.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. Well, you know, we've certainly enjoyed listening to the ones that you've been doing, and it looks like you're doing something that's really useful and helpful for the industry. So,
thank you,
Mike. I want to say congratulations, and you know, thank you for joining us today and telling us a bit about it.
Well, thanks. Thanks for having me on your show.
Okay.
Good to see you, Trevor.
Great. So coming up after the break, we're going to be talking to the managing director of, or president, should I say, of a new startup, but it's something that we all know.
At Kaizen, we know it's the science that makes the difference. The right solutions happen when you care enough to ask the right questions. And we understand that your performance is directly related to ours.
Science knows why it works, care knows why it's important.
And welcome back. I'm joined now by Bjorn Dhale, who, of course, many people know is the former president of KIK, a big company down in San Diego. But he's here to talk today about his most recent venture. So welcome, Bjorn. Nice to see you.
Thank you, Trevor. Good to see you too.
So you spent many years with KIK. In fact, and before that you were with MPM. You've been in this industry a long, long time. So you've got a lot of background there. You've got together, though, I believe, with Charlie Monkavich to develop a new company called Inspire. So what was the inspiration behind Inspire?
Well, Charlie Monkavich is a serial inventor. He invented Gridlock and the founder of that company that he ended up selling to DEC and then later on Quick Tool. And he was outside of the industry for a while. He is an inventor, and he's always inspired by things around him and comes up with some unbelievably innovative solutions.
Okay. So what is the particular solution that you're bringing to the market this time?
So, if I go back, you and I go back a long time to practically the beginning of the SMT industry, and I still think about those years with fond memories. And every NEPCON, every year, there were huge improvements in machines, in material, in technology. And then as the industry matured, there's still some, but they're few and far between. It's more evolutionary. And so what we are bringing to the show this year, we think is one a disruptive technology that is going to really shake up at least the fixture aspects of our industry. And so today, when you talk about machine fixtures from printers, placement, and so forth, there are essentially two ways of doing that. And I mentioned Charlie invented the pin support systems, still used widely today. And the other is to send out to a third party. You send out the electronic file, and you come a few days later, a metal plate comes back as a dedicated tooling. So what we're introducing here at the show is a mini CNC machine where you strap in a PCB at the top of the machine. You have a blank material at the bottom, and you hit start and walk away, and 2 hours later you come back, and now you have made your own dedicated fixture. And the price of the material is less than $100 per fixture. But more importantly, manufacturers it's an on-demand business. And so waiting days for a dedicated tooling is a problem sometimes.
It's addressing a very big problem. I mean, because things are happening so much faster in the factory space. And as factories are continuing to automate, feeding the line faster changeover, faster tooling in this case are becoming important. But to be able to do it at such a low cost is quite incredible. What kind of materials are you using?
So it is a type of foam, ESD foam, and the material itself is a whole science to it, because there are studies out there that indicate hard tooling is not optimal for a printing process. So this material has a certain level of give, certain level of pliability, and makes the printing process better. It also is designed in such a way that it can utilize, many of the printers have like a vacuum feature, and the material that we use and the way it's designed allows to take advantage of that vacuum feature in printers.
Right. So you mentioned earlier, of course, that Charlie started his career with Gridlock, which is a pin support system. So what are the advantages compared to a pin support system? Apart from obviously the capital outlay, I would guess.
So I think the pin support system will continue to be around. We've heard yesterday more and more now the PCBs get thinner, and certainly flex circuits, you can use a pin support. The pins themselves, they cannot get a distance between the pins less than about an inch. So if you have a thin board, then the support between the pins may not be adequate. If you have an odd-shaped board, it may be an issue. We had a customer yesterday, his boards were so thin that it would fit on one pin, but it would fall short of the second one. And so I think that there will be some that will shift from a pin support system to ours, but you know, they do work well for most companies. Right. There is also some complaints about solder paste dripping down and they get clogged, and there's maintenance with them and right. so forth. But so we have some advantages over them. Right.
And miniaturization, of course, with geometries getting smaller. Right. You need a more dedicated support structure.
Exactly. Yeah. And so that's our motto: stop tooling around, build your own.
Very good, very good. Great. Well, I want to thank you for telling us about that today, Bjorn, and we wish you every success with it. And in fact, we will be taking a closer look at the machine later today, I believe.
Yes.
So we look forward to that.
All right. Thank you so much, Trevor.
Thank you. Okay. So that's it. Coming back after the break, we will have another guest joining us. Welcome back, and joining me now is Dyan Reagan from Weller Tools. Nice to see you, Dyan.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, so tell me a little bit about Weller. You do a wide range of benchtop tools and soldering systems, but maybe give me a quick overview of what you manufacture.
Correct, so we have 3 platforms. Mm-hmm. We have an entry, we call it good, better, and best. Mm-hmm. But we like to focus on our WT and our WX platforms. Right. And with that, you have a wide range of tip selection. Mm-hmm. Our microprocessors are built into the unit so that your temperatures are accurate, so that we don't deal with any overshooting.
Okay. Does that make the handles not get so hot?
Correct.
Because it's in the microprocessor, so then it goes
straight
to the tip.
Well, it controls the temperature.
Right.
The temperature is controlled in the unit, not in the tips. Mm-hmm. And with that, we have a wide range of both active tips and passive tips.
Right.
So you don't need to buy a tip for each temperature that you're working with off of the bill of material.
Okay.
Yes.
It's interesting.
Yes.
Good. So you also have, I guess, a range of complementary hand tools and your own fume extraction.
We do. So we are owned by Apex Tool Group. Mm-hmm. So with our electronics offering, we have Weller Arum cutters, and we also have Exolite, which are on most benches. And we also have offerings in the hand tool segment and filtration. Right. Yes.
Okay. I mean, the Weller range has been known throughout the industry for many years, but where do you actually manufacture your products?
We manufacture everything in Querétaro. We made that move from Germany about 2 years ago, so we manufacture in Mexico. We distribute out of Mexico and out of our U.S. office. We're headquartered in Lexington, South Carolina. Okay. So your manufacturing in Mexico is for the Americas, basically, and yes.
you also do manufacturing in Europe, do you?
Or we engineer in Europe.
Engineer in Europe.
All of manufacturing is in Mexico.
I see. Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
That's interesting. Yes. So what's coming down the pipe? What can we look forward to? At
Productronica, we're going to be launching a new exciting product. We also have a benchtop robot that we launched last year at Productronica, and it's been successful. Okay. It's an accurate point-to-point dual drawer soldering robot. Yes. It has built-in filtration. It is powered with our WT soldering unit. Yes, so which helps because you can do some touch-up if you have our WT unit. Right. And try to get a feel for how it's going to work before you set your profiles and your parameters. So
how popular have these robotic systems become?
It's a very competitive market, and we have been successful considering that we're new and we were a little bit late to the game on that. Right. But yes, we sold 3 in Canada, 5 in the U.S.
Right. Well, that's
in
a good
the first
start.
Year.
Yeah. Is that a division you see that you will be expanding further going forward?
We're more focused on our hand soldering and listening to the VOC of the customers in all of the countries. Right. And although automation is hot, we are still putting most of our focus on our benchtop hand soldering, rework.
So without giving the game away, basically you're going to be concentrating more on the process control with this new release you're bringing out at Productronica.
Traceability, connectivity.
Yeah, okay.
Yes, data logging. It's all things that we have on some of our higher end professional line WX units now, but we're going to be showing some real exciting new tools at Productronica.
Great. Well, we're all going to look forward to that. So make sure and visit the Weller booth at Productronica. Dyan, thank you for coming in today.
Thank you. Thanks for having us.
Thank you. Okay, so that's it from our invited guests for this morning. Later today, of course, we're going to be having some more panel discussions, and hopefully before the end of the day, I'll get a catch up on the show with Mike Skinner. But for now, this is Trevor Galbraith saying thanks for joining us.